It is a real pleasure and a privilege to follow the Right Honourable Member for Leeds Central, for whom I have huge admiration and respect. I sat in this chamber on the 2nd of December 2015 and listened to his speech on, with regards to countering Daesh in Iraq and Syria. He took a principled position then as a shadow Foreign Secretary, and that was one of the best speeches this House has heard. And I also agree with him on this debate with regards to the comments made by the Secretary of State for Northern Ireland when he said on the 8th of September that what was being proposed in this bill would breach international law in a very specific and limited way. Mr. Brady, that is completely and utterly unacceptable. I am also a lawyer, and I will refer to that comment a bit further in my speech. And I accept that the majority of this bill is necessary for an effective United Kingdom single market when we are no longer subject to EU rules. With regards to Brexit, Mr. Brady, I campaigned for Brexit. My constituency voted 65% to deliver Brexit. And my voting record is the same as that of the Prime Minister and many of those who sit in the Cabinet with regards to delivering on Brexit. Brexit meant many things to many people, but for me it was about sovereignty. The British public electing their members of Parliament who have the final say on the laws that govern our country and our citizens. But Brexit must be delivered in the right way, respecting the United Kingdom's commitment to the rule of law and a country which stands by the word it gives. That, Mr. Brady, cannot be compromised on. I have real concerns with regards to paragraph 42, 43 and 45 in this bill. Brexit was about sovereignty, taking back control of our laws, borders and money. But under those provisions, we would defer that authority to ministers, to then be able to unilaterally withdraw from an international agreement passed by this House. How can that be sovereignty, Mr. Brady? It can't. And I have to say I agree with the Right Honourable and my learned friend, the former Attorney General, the member for Kenilworth, when he gave his speech to this House on the 14th of September with regards to those three specific provisions. He's a great man, and I had a privilege to be his parliamentary private secretary when he was the Attorney General. Mr. Brady, can I raise this point? For me, there can be no compromise in one's core beliefs. And my core belief is a respect for the rule of law. If you give your word, you have to honour it. And what the Secretary of State for Northern Ireland said, when he said on the 8th of September, and you sit in your parliamentary offices and you listen to it, this would break international law in a very specific and limited way. So what are we saying to our citizens? That you can break other laws in a specific and limited way? Our country is going through difficult, challenging times when we are asking people to adhere to guidance, but yet we have a Minister of the Crown say that from the dispatch box. There is something called honour, Mr. Brady, and for me, I could not serve as the Prime Minister's Special Envoy for freedom of religion or belief. I conveyed that message to the government on the Sunday, and I was told that the government would not be accepting the amendment put forward by the member for Bromley and Chislehurst. So on that basis, on Monday, I took the decision to resign my position. Can I say this, Mr. Brady, when you talk about, being patriotic, our national anthem says, "Long may she reign, may she defend our laws." May she defend our laws. And this is what this is about. And for me, as the Prime Minister's Special Envoy, I'm grateful, and I had a real privilege and honour to serve as the United Kingdom's Special Envoy for freedom of religion or belief. We took forward 17 different recommendations of the 22 of the Truro Report, but also I helped, along with the United States and the Ambassador from the Netherlands, to set up the International Alliance to promote freedom of religion or belief around the world. We used to say to countries, respect Article 18 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. People can have whatever faith they want, or no faith, but respect that. So you expect the Prime Minister's Special Envoy for the United Kingdom to go along to the table and say, I think we should do that at the Security Council, or we should do that at the United Nations General Assembly, or we should do that at the OSCE, or we should do that at the Human Rights Council. But after what the Minister, the Secretary of State for Northern Ireland said at the dispatch box, how can one go and lecture others when you have the situation that's been put forward on the 8th of September? Mr. Brady, can and the question is, people ask me, why then are you supporting the government's Amendment 66? The reason I'm supporting Amendment 66 is for this reason. On Monday, if you look at the order paper, on a Tuesday, 15th and 14th, 15th, on the amendment put forward by the member for, the Right Honourable Member for Chislehurst, there was only 13 signatories to that amendment. For parliamentary sovereignty, Parliament should decide. This Parliament enacted, supported the withdrawal agreement. If it now wants to come out of it, this Parliament should say it, not defer it to ministers. But only 13 members of Parliament had signed it. And I'm grateful to the member for Ashford and Bromley and Chislehurst. And also, I have to say, I am grateful to the likes of the member for Runnymede and Weybridge, who came in 2019 and signed that amendment. So when you look at the amendment which asks for parliamentary sovereignty, and on Monday the vote is passed by 77 votes in this House, how do I know you can get 40 votes to overturn the clauses 42, 43 and 45, which I could never accept? No honourable member would accept 42, 43 or 45. So when you're in that position, either you accept 66, the amendment put forward by the member for Chislehurst, being pragmatic, being reasonable. And I say this as somebody for 3 years, from 2004 to 2007, worked with the former Prime Minister of Pakistan, who lost her life fighting for democracy, going to discussions in the Foreign Office with the Foreign Secretaries, Jack Straw and David Miliband, looking at transition to democracy. There always has to be give and take, being pragmatic and being realistic. And on that basis, to avoid having to put 42, 43, 45 in, you support the proposals under the 66 for parliamentary oversight. I want to finish with this quote, Mr. Brady. I know time is of the essence. Parliamentary sovereignty, parliamentary scrutiny is of the utmost importance to each and every one of us. We are all amongst equals. We all have a voice. We take into account the views of our constituents, and we come here and we represent them. Over the summer, I read this brilliant quote by a Member of Parliament from 2010, before I came to this House. And I'll read that quote, and some will recognise who that person is. But he was a man of great integrity, and he did the right thing. And this is what he said about about taking Parliament seriously. A word to the coming generation of politicians. I have one simple message. Take Parliament seriously. If we, the elected, do not, then why should anyone else? By all means, support the programme on which your party was elected. But we are not automatons. We are not sent here merely to be cheerleaders or get stiff-necked looking at the fount of power. We are sent here to exercise our judgment, to hold ministers to account for the power they hold. That means proper scrutiny. It means insisting that ministers engage seriously with Parliament and that they are open to dialogue. And on that basis, I am grateful to the Prime Minister for listening, for engaging and ensuring that we have recommendation 66, which would mean that if ever these matters were to come, where the United Kingdom was to deviate from its commitment passed through the House of Commons, then this House would have it. And what I tried to intervene on the Minister earlier, and if I can ask the Minister at this point, please do it, is initially the provisions were put forward under statutory instrument, which would have meant the government could have put forward an affirmative motion for 90 minutes. Minister stands at the dispatch box, and we are for an hour. Please, we've accepted 66, but can you clarify when it comes back, if this comes back, that there is full debate in this House, where as many members of Parliament who need to speak can speak. And finally, on that, I'll just end with this quote. For me, one of the great things I did was representing our country at the canonisation of St. John Henry Newman, a great British saint with global impact. And he said this. He said, in Lead Kindly Light, I cannot see the distant sea, but a step at a time is enough for me. And I say this to the government. When and if the government looks to bring these measures forward, please do it so that there's appropriate checks and balances at every level by this House.